Teams often don't understand how their choices can ramp up cloud costs until it's too late. I'm Tom Shields, and on today's Intelligence Report, creating a culture that supports FinOps. This topic reminds me of one of our customers who had just gotten an unexpected multi-million-dollar cloud bill. DevOps team had deployed an IoT project causing sensors to flood the cloud with data every minute. The right culture could have avoided this. I'm here talking to John and Jevin. Guys, changing culture is one of the hardest things to do. What's your advice on doing it in a FinOps context?
Well, doing change management for 40, 50 years now. So we do know how to drive change from an IT standpoint. But this is different because this is about communication, collaboration, and ultimately accountability. You've got to make sure everyone has a seat at the table. We mentioned some of the personas that we like to see on the FinOps teams, but you need to invest in training as well. That's important. There's FinOps specific terms, and everyone needs to be on the same page as far as when they're talking about the different costs in the cloud, the different terms within FinOps. So that's important. And really making sure everybody uses that single source of the truth. They build the trust within the teams, and you know that they're going to be held accountable. You didn't make this change. You didn't make this optimization. Why not? What's the problem? You know that's going to happen at the very next meeting, whether you decide to meet once a month or twice a month, whatever your routine is. Holding each other accountable is ultimately how it works.
What are the ways in which the tooling that you use can help to support those different efforts that you're making to change that culture?
Well, that can really bring the transparency and visibility that you need. So that can be shared across the company. You don't want to be holding that. Some one person in a back room has all the information. No one else has it. You want to share that collaboratively, have everybody access the tool so they can slice and dice and have their own reports for their part of the business. Because ultimately, we want to go to chargebacks and even unit economics, and that requires buy-in from the line of business. They're the people that are creating this demand. So they need to sit at the table, but they also need to understand when they ask for a new project, a new resource in the cloud, that's going to increase their costs and impact their budgets as well.
And related to that, when we have a DevOps team, they're just focused on how do I get an application deployed in a reliable, scalable way. They're not necessarily focused so much on what's the cost of this resource? How do you make it easier for them to make the right decisions when they are trying to do the things that they're being asked to do?
DevOps was all about agile and speed and really driving that as quick as possible. And, everything else was just a roadblock in the way. Move out of the way. I'm coming through. And so the ability to train them, to have DevOps, whether it be the manager, the director of that team in the FinOps meetings each month and taking those lessons learned back to their DevOps teams, I think is really critical. So it's a training investment and then showing them how they can not only improve cost, but avoid those problems, those surprise billings that we all hate to get.
So, Jevin, one thing I wanted to ask was, who do you recommend sits on the FinOps team? What groups need to be represented?
That's a really key component for your long-term success. Some people that you may not expect, like procurement, maybe they're only involved in the cloud on the front end, but keeping them involved and understanding when the contract expired, where you are on your credits, et cetera. Finance, we want people from the architect. If you have a cloud COE or a cloud architect, they want to be in there. We talked about DevOps, at least a manager. We don't want the whole team in there, but a leader from the DevOps that can take that back and share it with a group. And you really need an executive sponsor. And we'd like to see that someone other than the CIO. Of course, it can be, but a CFO or ultimately even a CEO that is a sponsor and can enable the FinOps practitioner, that one person that's dedicated, 40 hours a week to working FinOps and making sure the teams are collaborating and holding each other accountable. They need a little bit of a backup and coaching and how to get things done within the organization, and that requires a C-suite type of a sponsor as well.
DevOps teams are really focused on how do I actually get applications deployed with speed, with reliability, with agility. How do we make it easier for them to make those decisions, keeping the needs of the FinOps framework and principles in mind without being overwhelmed by more dashboards to look at or more meetings to sit in?
We don't want to slow down the developers. We've gotten them moving so quick with all the automation of DevOps and CI/CD pipelines and the like. They're doing a great job, but they need at least some training on a Lambda call once a minute versus once an hour. It's going to have a big impact on your cost. And all these other web services and the configurations, they just need the education and the understanding, and then we can provide the reports. The tools can do that for them. They don't have to worry about that. The DevOps manager can bring that information back and share those best practices that was learned from the FinOps team.
Right. Culture supporting technology.
Can't beat that.
Technology supported by culture is definitely the right combination to tackle the cost challenge. Be sure to tune in to our other two FinOps segments, dealing with complexity and going beyond simple cost optimization.